Hello everyone, this is the RJP experience. First and foremost, I'd like to apologize for any issue with audio. I have to use my phone because I'm having computer difficulties. Secondly, I'd like to make sure I am clear about the fact that this is in no way going to be any kind of, how would I put this, instruction or exact legal opinion on how to handle these kinds of difficult affairs, but I am hoping that one, maybe someone might have a better idea of what I might be able to do, and two, maybe this will help at least establish some kind of legal framework that they can use to at least enhance any kind of legal opinion they get by their counsel or lawyers or anything of the above. So I will start as chronologically as possible. Around April, my wife and I decided we wanted to have our baby that's coming to be born in Greece in hopes that our family could help due to many financial issues that we have, including my dad losing his business and me being the sole employee for that and basically giving all the money I had saved. It's irrelevant to the consulate or any further discussion, but it's a backstory nonetheless. So we tried calling the consulate, no responses, and any of the options, and especially with the one for certificate of residence abroad, it basically just tells you information and cuts out. We tried emails from even before then, but just to learn the instructions, and then finally at that point actually asking them to help, to which they submitted a template that basically says use My Counsel Live. The My Counsel Live option was not available. The full service was not available, not even on Ottawa. We'll get to that in a minute. So in between that, I'm working 13 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. I had no time to even try to enter the consulate or go to Toronto before anybody asked. My personal position was impossible to do that. My dad's also missing a leg and potentially losing another one. There's my financial position and his attached. My grandmother's 95, sometimes needs help. My mother's a schizophrenic and having heavy onset, what do you call it? Well, basically her lungs aren't good, so she's on ventilation now, and one might help, and I couldn't even help her, let alone try to run around for the consulate. Anyway, I eventually got in touch with the embassy. The embassy said that the consulate was under construction since January, forget April, and that the officer in charge is unfortunately on vacation till September, so try again in September. Okay, well, in my particular situation, that's not an acceptable answer. The excessive delays aren't really justified in my particular case, because this is not just a luxury, it's a right that I want to retain, and that I should have the right to exercise at a time that is not only convenient for me, but necessary for me at this point in my life. So anyway, we ended up having to go to Greece because we couldn't wait any longer due to personal reasons. Again, not their problem, shouldn't have to justify it. Don't blame them for my personal situation. But nonetheless, it's my obligation to continue communication, to try to explain it as reasonably as possible and as professionally as possible, hold them to account so that we can maintain a productive orientation into getting the certificate, right? Anyway, they ended up saying I needed a summons for them to do the certificate after going through extensive measures, getting a lawyer, forcing them to respond, and even the emergency use for this, which as far as I understand should be acceptable in my case. A little bit of a background is, in the past, in these kinds of situations, the Army was able to edit your certificate of residence abroad in very specific circumstances after all measures were exhausted. But as of 2026, that's not the case, especially if you don't have an up-to-date one. Mine's from 2021. There's other issues with that too. Implication of being Class B put as 11 years, but I'm actually Class A, born, raised, never spent too long in Greece. Actually, my mom and dad had a divorce, which locked me into Ontario. Wasn't even allowed to leave. So that's an issue in and of itself. I have documentation on that, by the way. In any case, I had a hard time trying to find my school record, so they put me in Class B, and at the time, it didn't matter to me as long as I wasn't put as a disobedient with the military and deferred me, and I figured I can deal with it later if I can manage to get the records. Now, the records I did manage to get this year, again, I was more forced into it because of the situation. It's not that I couldn't have tried before, just had more important things to deal with. Anyway, so I got all that, trying to not only get my renewed certificate, but also trying to, if at all possible, update it to classification A. So they're asking for this summons, which cannot be given to me unless I get rid of my deferral now, which would remove all my rights as a protected citizen abroad, essentially, which in and of itself seems irresponsible. But that would be okay if I had a current certificate, because the way that it works is then you present the current certificate, which I don't have, and they won't give me unless I cut my protections, which then doesn't actually give me the rights to get the certificate at this point because I'm cutting it out, and etc. So that's a deadlock. And then there's the other deadlock of bureaucracy, right? Basically not their problem, and you have a luxury, and it doesn't matter if we're waiting 9 months for you to even try, not guarantee that we can actually present you the service, because there's many more people with emergencies, 250,000 roughly in Ontario, that are going to be maybe a little less than that. That's the guesstimation population of Greek citizens. Some might fall under the authority of the embassy, but in general, for the Toronto Consulate, let's say, because the majority of the population will be in the GTA probably. Any case, they'll be unable to do anything about it, and it's not their fault that they're under construction, and it's not their fault that their officers taking vacation, so they have no real reason to care at this point, though they don't exactly directly say it. They basically have that issue, and this is all stuff I got from the embassy, more or less you could say off the record, but it's also on the record because all their phones are recorded. Technically, I could ask for that if I could even get a hearing or anyone to listen, but that's not happening. In any case, we went to the ombudsman, as you already know, and that didn't really get us anything other than that one email. So it resulted in a point where I've talked to the Greek army. The Greek army has confirmed my situation, and let's say off the record agreed with me that I'm right, and they're careful not to say wrong, but they're mistaken about the requirements, and that they have no authority to hold them to account, and this delay is ridiculous, effectively. But again, there's no law that pretty much they can use to say directly they're wrong, or to hold them to account. Same with my lawyer. And I've sent that. I've sent repeated messages. The more recent ones, I could probably show you in a second. But basically, I've created, up to this point, even a memorandum. And I've even now, my final, before I try to volunteer, because I'm going to have to in August, personal reasons, basically had to make a complaint to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because there's nothing else to really police this, and even then my general understanding is they can try to act on it. I'm not sure how much they can really do, and maybe there's something they can do that I don't know of to police it, but it's still the roadmap in which you have to go step by step. And bear in mind, this is taking me from April, so making all this communication, giving them ample time to reply with those delays, and they haven't, is in effect both beneficial and problematic, because for your legal case it's absolutely required, but problematic because eventually you're going to lose just from the time. Bureaucratic problems, right? So I've even talked to the embassy again since then over my Consul Live. They confirmed that my understanding is correct. They haven't promised me anything, but they said they'd look into possibly emailing me the results of the request for independent processing, not the certificate itself, to examine if technically all the evidence I provided, over 200 pages worth of evidence of me being born and raised in Canada, etc., the requirements, is sufficient to say that I should be eligible, because essentially if I do my voluntary service, then I can't get the certificate, and then I don't have undeniable proof that I would have been eligible for the certificate, right? So I was thinking, along with my lawyer, like we should try to still contact the embassy, which is why I went through that. I knew that we weren't going to be able to get anywhere because it's not their jurisdiction or authority to do anything in that matter. But I still did it because you have to take the steps necessary, attempt to establish good faith communication, support yourself in all evidence as possible. And my hope was that maybe this might lead to an email that is in writing, clarifies what was said, so we don't have to look for the audio to show the delays are in fact happening, and secondarily that I am, as I said, technically able to apply for the certificate and in fact receive it, because after that there's really nothing I can do, and it's not my fault, and the delays are unjustified due to my personal circumstances over what should be considered a basic service. So this is where we are. Again, none of what I said is meant to be any kind of legal advice. It's more an opinion and something in it that you might be able to use as a metric to benefit yourself in some way. But effectively, my opinion, not advice, is always keep records, always try to think outside the box, always maintain good communication regardless of what you think, because you know your opinion's basically irrelevant in a court of law. And hope and pray. If this somehow comes to a point where I have to look at reparations or a formal complaint during military service or after, all this documentation is going to be required, because I won't be able to prove I should have been a resident abroad. That's the way I understand it. So if you guys have any opinions, comments, or if you have any questions of what I may have done, I mean, feel free to put in the comments below. Yeah, that's where we are. Signing off.